My guest today is Teri Farrari, author of the Maggie's Magic T-shirt Early Learning Storybook series. Teri's innovating early learning schools, initially set up for her daughter, have been featured on the BBC, Sky Television, Channel 9 in Australia, as well as in many publications like the Sunday Times, the Observer, the Daily Mail, and Parents Magazine. As a developmental psychologist, natural health practitioner, and author, Teri has dedicated her career to helping children learn in ways that excite them, that in ways that inspire them. And she's here to share her knowledge of early learning with us. Teri, welcome to the Homeschool Ways podcast.
I, I'm very pleased to be here finally.
Yes, finally, we tried. This is third time's a charm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what sparked the idea for Maggie's Magic T-shirt. What started it all?
Oh gosh. Well, a couple of things really. One is, I've always had a passion for learning. Goes right back to when I was 4, I suppose. Desperate to learn. I had a older cousin who I guess I was hearing about school from her, and absolutely desperate to go to school. I just wanted to learn. I was bored. I just wanted to learn stuff. And my parents tried to get me into school early. They wouldn't take me because I wasn't old enough. And I remember sobbing my heart out all the way in the car back home. And then when I went to school, when I was 5, I was just so disappointed on that first day because they weren't doing anything that was to do with learning. It was just kind of playing around, and I thought, I haven't come here to do that. I've come here to learn stuff. So I think it was just my awareness of how I was when I was younger, when I was really little, and this sort of passion I had for learning. So I think it was kind of that kind of awareness of how I was. And obviously at the time when I wrote the books, I was so aware of what young children could do, not just myself, but, because I'd studied psychology and developmental psychology in particular. And then as part of that, when we went on holiday, and my daughter, we went to a little Greek island. Now, my daughter was very messy. I mean, she really was messy. So she was always getting stuff over her. Literally, I'd put a t-shirt on and literally 5 seconds later, mess. And she was really quite quirky and enthusiastic and lots of energy and so on. And that's when I was running the school at that point. And, it's like you get busy, you've got so stuff to do. I had a last minute holiday booking that I managed to find. And so I'm rushing around trying to organise everything before I went away. And I said to my daughter, who then was probably in about 3, I said, I've got no time to pack your, stuff for you. Can you just kind of pack a rucksack with, all the basic things? Because she was very grown up for her age, always has been. She was kind of born an adult, one of those kids.
Yes.
And so I never had chance to check because it was just like, we had to catch a plane in a few hours. So it was completely mad. And anyway, finally got there, and amazingly, she got pretty well everything there. But of course, because she was so messy, she just kind of got a t-shirt for every day. And there's no way that was going to last because, we needed about 2 or 3 t-shirts for just a day. So we went to a little Greek island and a little tiny Greek shop, and we bought a couple of t-shirts. And the t-shirt that actually features in Maggie's Magic t-shirt is one of the ones that we bought. So this t-shirt was lovely. It was lovely and soft, really lovely soft cotton. And I guess because of it, it was kind of stretchy. I mean, it didn't feel stretchy, but it literally grew with her. So, she was about 3 when we bought it. She was still wearing it when she was 12. I mean,
Wow.
it's extraordinary. It was just somehow it just seemed to grow with her. So it was just kind of like one, I don't know, day many years later that, I don't know, just got an odd moment or two to do something. And I thought, oh, well, and this story came into my head. And I just kind of wrote it down in about 20 minutes. And there it was, Maggie's Magic T-shirt. So that's how
Got
it
it.
came about. A kind of long, tortuous sort of description, but it was a combination of a number of things coming together.
Yeah, these things are sometimes building on each other, and
Mm,
then you get this whole experience. And yeah, it's you have to go back to the roots, and there's a stem and there are little branches.
yeah.
So tell us more about the schools, and then about your experience as a homeschool mom, and how that has shaped the magical elements in early learning.
Right. Okay. So how did I get into this? Because I was working as a practitioner, and had been for quite some time, and then I had my daughter, and being working mum, I'm trying to do stuff with her, and run my practice at the same time. Um, and I was doing stuff with her really from about 3 months, because I was so aware of the potential that young children have. And obviously, coming back to what I was saying about when I was a child, just being bored, desperately wanting to learn stuff. And I suppose in a way, she was kind of reflecting how I was feeling when I was a child. And she was a bright little bunny from day one. I mean, literally, I can remember when she was born, she was literally looking at the curtains moving, and she was only literally an hour old.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and I was doing lots of stuff with her. I was always sort of saying hello, and we had cats, so cat and stuff. Um, and I'd been very influenced by Glenn Doman. Do you know the Philadelphia Institute of Human Potential?
No.
Yeah, okay. So in Philadelphia, there is the Philadelphia Institute for Human Potential. And I got to know about them before I had my daughter. I'd been doing voluntary work. And one of the things I was doing was helping one of the parents on the program, because they have a program for brain damaged children and they have a program for well children. So they literally have schools there. And they have this wonderful setup where parents can go there with children, and if they've brain damage in some way, they will look at the child holistically, they'll look at nutritionally, they'll give them activities to do depending on their problems, and they do some amazing work there. And it really kind of aligned with my feelings about early learning and early child development. And so I actually wrote to Glenn Doman and said, "Can I come and see you?" So I flew over there and spent a week there, talking to him, and at the Wells School as well. That's did all their kind of do this sort of weird obstacle course stuff that the kids are brilliant at. And yeah, so that I was very much influenced. I mean, he's just, well, I mean, he's unfortunately passed on now. I mean, he's quite old at the time, but yeah, he was just a lovely guy. In some ways, greatly misunderstood, because I think a lot of people thought he was hot housing, and he wasn't. He's always said that learning should be joyous, and certainly when I met him, that was very much the feeling I got, and aligned with how I felt about it as well. That because children are naturally curious from day one,
Hmm.
and they just want to learn stuff. I mean, we've been kind of biologically programmed, if you want to put it in some way, to actually absorb information for survival. So yeah, kids do want to learn, and they will ask questions on all kinds of levels. They don't know whether it's an undergraduate level question or a kindergarten level question. No, it's a question. Give me an answer, please. And I can remember being a child in the same way. So yeah, so that's really was the essence of why I did what I did with my own daughter from such a young age. Doing some flashcards, doing lots of things. We had like sort of plastic buttons, the kind of ones you do for threading. Yeah,
Yes.
so I put a lot
Yes.
of those on the floor because Glendamen do these flashcards with dots, random dots, because children then become very good at maths.
Yes.
Um, so I was doing that, and in fact, she kind of got to the point where she was kind of getting a bit bored with flashcards. So I thought, okay, let's make it more kind of physical. So we had these buttons, colour buttons on the floor. And then, I'd put some out and say, well, that's, there's 30. And then we'd have this game. I mean, she started the game actually because she would just sort of like take two away. And I'd say, right, that's 28, add three equals. And we'd literally be doing math with buttons
Right.
on the carpet. And that worked brilliantly. So, yeah, so really it's kind of, I suppose, spontaneously working with what the child's telling you and how they're interacting. So, I'm a holistic practitioner, which means that you work with the individual. There's no kind of set way of doing something. You have some ideas and you do things that, maybe you do with everybody, but, you adapt accordingly to how the person's reacting. So we did a lot of that before I even thought about schools. Um, and that went on for quite some time until I got to the point where I thought she really needs some kids to kind of bounce off, and that's really what led me then to setting up the schools,
Okay.
um, and uh, and also because it was very difficult being a mum, trying to juggle seeing patients, and that when you've got a school, you've got some other people, you know, downstairs in the school doing stuff that you've set the curriculum for while I'm upstairs seeing patients and kind of juggling both, but it becomes a bit easier. Well, in a way it becomes easier, in some ways it becomes harder, but yeah, yeah.
How many children in the school?
Oh gosh. um it started off with start off with we probably ended up with just over 30, about 35.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
on any one day because we had more children. Not all of them were coming every day.
okay.
Yeah, and then I opened up another school in another location, and then I opened up a prep school, like a school for children from 5 to 8 after
Okay.
that, after a few years. But my daughter got older and no longer could stay at that school, so we kind of moved up. Yeah, so it
Okay.
kind of evolved.
Everything you're sharing makes me think of so many other things. For instance, the Charlotte Mason idea, and she was British.
Mm,
The Charlotte Mason idea that a child is born a person. This is
mm,
a person, from, like you said, from day one. My son also was, when for like the first hour, he was, like you said, looking around. Um, then Raymond Moore. I worked with Raymond Moore, and he's also passed on, but he is the grandfather of the American homeschool movement, and he helped everybody sort of set up legally in the 80s. He would go from state to state to state. I have people here in Tennessee that remember that very first organizational meeting, and Dr. Raymond Moore flew from Washington state to help out, and he would tell them, if you band together, they're not going to keep you illegal. They're going to have to make homeschooling legal. So anyway, this is a titan of homeschooling, and he said the same thing that you said. Children learn naturally. They are born learners. They are curious about the world. Don't kill that with drills and the kill and drill approach, or drill and kill. First it looks like a drill, but then you kill
mm,
the ambition, the spark,
mm.
of curiosity. And then he put together unit studies. Now I'm still trying to sort of wrap my mind around unit studies for my homeschool. It I have a hard time with unit studies because, as an administrator, as an educator, how do you keep track of what they've actually learned? You know, they
Yeah.
like horses. Okay, so with the horse, now we're going to study trains which replace the horses. Then we're going to study anatomy and what they eat. So, that's animal science. And then we're going to study some like Black Beauty and famous Bucephalus, famous horses in history. And it's like, we're studying horses, but I don't know, have we reached all our academic goals in math, in social studies for this year? So, unit studies to me sound amazing for like the early learning years. Like you said, you work with a person with their interest level, with if once they become bored with something, then you move on. And then you study something else that they're interested in, and learning happens. But there comes a point where unit studies just don't make sense anymore. But anyway, I digress. Let's come back to your story. How could a homeschooling routine implement and include the whole book series that you wrote? I kind of know the answer to that question because I've read the book, I've seen the workbook, and it's amazing, but I want to hear from the author.
Okay, so I suppose again, it was kind of like on my experiences of what was happening in our schools. I mean, basically, I completely rewrote the rule book because what was happening in what we call nursery schools, not kindergarten schools, we have nursery schools for young children. So we were taking children in from literally 3 months up to 5 years.
Okay.
And we were expected to do at the time was just basically care for them. And if we just kind of happened to do a bit of, reading or something, then that was all good. But nobody was monitoring it. So I thought, right, let's do what I wanted when I was a little girl. Let's do what I've been doing with my daughter. I brought in specialist teachers. And when I say specialist teachers, I was bringing in graduates from Cambridge University, which is one of our top universities in the UK, people who were passionate about their subject. So
Yeah.
I had a postgraduate in history. I had a doctor of biochemistry who was teaching at one of our top London university hospitals.
Yeah.
We had somebody with, who basically in the relatively early days of computers was coming and teaching our children DOS, which was a very basic sort of computer language at the time. We were the first nursery to have computers in nurseries, that's for sure. We were doing French. We had French teacher. We had technology teacher who was doing all kind of innovative, wacky stuff. We were just kind of exposing them to everything and anything. And it was a really buzzy, dynamic time. So I've always lost track of where we are now. What was the question?
The question was, how could we integrate your books into a homeschool routine?
Right. Okay.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
So basically, what it comes down to is life skills. Okay.
Yes.
Because, oh God, traditional schools, not the love of learning out of kids. It really does. In most cases, not all schools, but majority. And I didn't want that happening with my kids. I just wanted them to feel inspired. So a lot of what we're doing, I'm trying to do in the books that I create. So kids love stories, they love fun stories, they love magic and so on. So I'd got a magic story, but what I wanted was to actually, kids read stories and they've had stories read to them, but they don't always remember everything. And that's part of learning, is also remembering and recalling. So I thought, okay, in the first book, we'll do like a little comprehension quiz, and then we'll do
Yes.
a little bit of some of the words that were actually in the book to help with, building general vocabulary, understanding that words have a purpose, and, having some fun with them. And I thought, right, I just want to build kind of like life skills into my storybooks because I couldn't see anybody else that was doing this, and it seemed to me logical because it kind of reflected a lot of what I'd been doing in the schools, which was, rewriting whatever you did with kids, because it just felt like life skills are so important. It's not just about academic stuff. because half of what we learn in schools, probably more actually, we never actually use. But what we do need, which again doesn't always feature in schools in many ways, should be there. So the next two books were cookery books, based on the fact that my daughter read her second book, actually. Her first book was called The Enormous Turnip, and then the second book was a cookery book, because we had lots of, she used to keep going up to the kitchen where we had our cook for the school, and we had tons of cookery books. I loved cookery books. And so she picked out one, amazingly, it was an American cookery book, and she picked out a recipe for popovers. And she actually cooked popovers with a bit of help from the cook. And it was the second book that she actually read was a cookery book. So I thought, right, okay, I will do a cookery book for kids with a story about Maggie, and then have some fun recipes that they can make, with a grown-up with that. So I then wrote Maggie Gets Baking, and then the next one was Maggie Makes a Smoothie, because again, with smoothies, you can link it into growing vegetables, growing fruit, and you're looking at nutrition, and you're getting kids, because if kids grow stuff, they want to eat them. So it's a way of getting them to eat, fruit and veg that maybe they might not like otherwise. So, that's what I'm trying to do, is make learning about stuff fun that you could integrate into other activities in your classroom, whether it's about growing stuff or whatever.
I wish I had your books when my kids were little, because you get so much with even that first one. So there's a fun story, there's a magical element, there's a t-shirt that grows, and then you've got the stains. The child is a little messy, so by the end of the book she's learning, okay, I need to be a little bit more careful. So that's a life skill that
Mm,
a young child needs,
mm,
no doubt. And then on top of the fun and the life skill, you get some words, like you said. There are some activities, there are some comprehension questions, recall questions, like who gave her the t-shirt and what happened? What was the first thing that,
mm,
she did after this happened? So it felt like a textbook, but everything's hidden inside a story, and you're learning, but you don't feel like you're in a classroom learning, and answering boring questions.
yeah.
Um, and then you've got the activity pages at the end. And if you weave in the cooking, this is so important for kids to learn. We're maybe not all need to know how to program a computer or how to write a code, but we all need to eat. We all need to know how to fix ourselves food. That's like one of the most basic things you can do. And yes, and if you don't like vegetables, then smoothies are the way to go. Just learn how to hide stuff in smoothies.
Yes, that's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the differences between the US and the UK when it comes to education and, regulations, approaches.
Yeah, well, I think we're a lot more flexible over here. We don't have, you can pretty well sit up and do homeschooling. I didn't have any problem at all. They pretty well kind of left me alone. Um, I think they might have had me to contend with if they had, because I was so passionate about it. I think it varies from state to state with you, though, doesn't it, as to how
It
easy or
does.
difficult it
It
is.
does. So it's a tricky question to
Mm.
answer, because some states are more regulated than others. But I guess my question was more in terms of, um, how many years did you homeschool?
About 10.
Okay.
Well, I,
So,
you see, I say homeschool because I homeschooled until my daughter, I mean, we went from about 3 months until I opened up the school. So by the time we opened up the school, she was two-ish, something like that. But I kind of, because we lived on the premises, because I literally bought a 4 or 5 bedroom house in order to set up school. And we lived in above. So kind of like it was still kind of homeschool. It's just that there were a load of other kids downstairs as
It
well.
was so to me, what it sounds like a co-op, and you lived at the co-op. We
Yeah.
call that a co-op, where several parents come together, they bring their children. Of course, these are also specialized teachers. In our co-op, we have specialized teachers whose children are not in the co-op, right? And so we have a French guy from France who teaches French. We have a deaf lady who teaches American Sign Language, and so on. And then you have the parents whose children are in the co-op, and we meet in a Baptist church. And so it sounds like you set up a co-op, and glory, you lived in it. So what a
Yeah.
wonderful thing.
Yeah. I mean, I took on, I think it's a 5-bedroom old Victorian house. It was falling down. I mean, literally, it hadn't been lived in for 2 years. It had been owned by an old lady who died in her 90s. And she'd been subletting it out to students, so that there were lots of rooms with, really dilapidated, curtains falling down, you name it. It was a wreck. And I literally found a builder, and together we rebuilt it. I mean, even the front wall was falling down, and there was a tree falling down. I mean, everything was falling down. So completely built it and renovated it together. Yeah.
Terry, could you please tell our audience how they can get in touch with you and how they can get your books?
Okay. Well, they can go onto the website, terifarrari.com, and then they can contact me through my email at contact@terifarrari.com. And yeah, I mean, happy to help in any way. We've got some lovely web worksheets. Also, apart from the books, I've got worksheet packs on maths and English stuff. I mean, I'm just adding to it all the time. I've got some science stuff about to go up on bees. A lot of my stuff, I try to do sort of rhyming stuff as well. So there'll be some poetry at some point going up. So there's all of that. What else have I got going on? Oh yes, there's Maggie's Club. So people want to go onto Maggie's Club on my website. So join Maggie's Club, which is free. We will do a monthly sending out of some worksheets free of charge to people as well. So a lot of fun stuff going on, and more to come.
Yes, yes, it sounds like fun. And I think I want to sign up just because I love worksheets, and I have little kids in my life. My kids are teenagers, but I've got other little kids in my life that could probably use a little diversion during the holidays, and even afterwards. But for now, through the winter season, I would invite parents to sort of sign up for the club, get some worksheets, get some of these packs, and maybe supplement their regular curriculum. And okay, if the kids are aware that it's Christmas holidays, and so I shouldn't be doing school. This is not school, this is fun, but yet they're still learning,
Yeah,
so
it's fun. And they're all Maggie themed, So
yeah,
yeah, so they complement
exactly.
books. Yeah. Mhm.
Good. Well, I will also put a link in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming. I want to thank you again for your patience. You and I struggled to get on Zoom. Finally, it happened,
Great.
and I'm very delighted that you could join us. And best of luck to you. And we'll definitely be here when you launch the next series.
Thanks very much. Nice to be here.